So you want to keep baby snakes. Hello, it's James from James's Reptiles. I'm going to talk about keeping baby snakes, how I do it, and how I recommend it. So I'm going to go over corn snakes and California king snakes, which where I live in California can be kept at room temperature. So I have them in tubs. These are 6-quart, something like that, 6-quart tubs. And you can see right here, I got all my holes drilled for air, and these aren't airtight, so I'm not really worried about that there. Now, as I started with the toilet paper roll, and as my snakes got bigger, I upgraded them. I got some of them are in these paper towel rolls, and then I have these little 2-ounce water dishes. I'm thinking with this guy, because he's getting kind of big, I'll probably upgrade his water dish real soon. See, here he is right here. Or she, I should say. She's getting kind of big for that water bowl, and eventually she'll go into a bigger tub. But right now she's in here. I use Katie brand Aspen just because I can get a lot of it really cheap, and I've never had an issue with it. Now, a lot of people say you have to use dried pine or some people use paper, but I think paper gets dirty too easy, and the pine costs too much, so I just go with the aspen. And I have heard people say there's issues with it, and their snakes will eat it when they're eating their prey, but I don't think I've had that issue. Well, I know I haven't had that issue. I don't think I will have that issue, just because snakes are smart and they're not really stupid animals. They can figure it out. But these tubs work great. There is a little bit of a lip down here, and I think if anything that would be one thing I wouldn't want, but at the same time it makes it easy for stacking. So let me switch snakes real quick and we'll move on from there. Here's a little head albino California king snake. Now these are illegal to buy and sell, but as far as I'm aware they're not illegal to keep. So I do have a couple of them, and I am going to breed them to my albino and produce some more next year, or two or 3 years from now. But as you can see right up next to this toilet paper tube, it's getting a little big for it. That's about when I'd switch it, so the next one I get will probably go to this little guy. And you can see, well, you can't see. You can see here I marked down what it eats and when it eats so I can keep track of it, especially if I were to sell it. Right there you can see 613, 2 live fuzzies, because this one's a fussy eater, and then 623, 1 frozen thawed fuzzy. And I think keeping track is a real good way to know how your snake's doing and what it's feeding on, so when you go to feed it next week, you're not surprised if it refuses frozen. And it just overall helps, especially if you're going to sell babies. If you have a clutch and you're raising them up a little bit before you sell them, people are going to want to know if it's eating well and how it's doing overall. Here's my albino California king snake. She's a real beaut. She's pink and yellow, which really catches most people's eyes. You can see right here she just shed recently, probably 2 days ago. And I'm not worried about the bedding getting in her water. What I do is I feed once a week, and I go and I check the water usually about halfway through, if not a day or 2 before feeding again. And that just kind of makes sure that if you do it while you're feeding, you're risking startling the snake, which I don't think really will happen that often, but why risk it? This is probably my healthiest or best eater out of all the 5 babies that I have right now. And which is really awesome, because when I first got it, it was the pickiest, and I was having a real hard time getting it to feed. But once it took to it, it's two fuzzies every week on the dot, every 5 days. And I couldn't love this guy more. This was produced by my friend Mondo. He breeds dry marcon and all sorts of those MBKs, melanistic milk snakes, xanthic milk snakes. He's breeding garters now. He's got tons of stuff going. Florida speckles. He's got all sorts of things going. He gave me a good deal on this, so I picked one up, and hopefully in a couple of years I'll be breeding them. Alright, so here's an example, another example of a hide I would do. This is the case for a thing of Fig Newtons, little 12 pack of Fig Newtons. I just cut a little thing on it when I was done. Reduce, reuse, recycle, that's what they say, right? And this is a het albino dot dash pattern California king snake. I personally like the coral band, which is what you saw before, but I know a lot of people like these, and it was just given to me by a friend who got it from the same person as a gift. You can't sell these, but you can give them away. It was given to him and his boy, and his kid did not want to care for it. You know how kids are. Everyone knows how kids are. He didn't end up wanting to care for it, and they were definitely having trouble getting it feeding. And they knew I had two at the time, so they said, here, take another one. It'll be another female to go with the het, so I'll have a pair of hets, and then a het and an albino. And it'll just increase my numbers and give me better chances. So I try to look for little ways that I can get hides or anything that helps me care for these little snakes and makes it easier on me. That's the goal. So one problem a lot of people have keeping baby snakes is getting them feeding. And I understand that I did have some problems getting mine, getting a couple of them. Like I said, the albino and that dot dash gave me some hard times. And the other coral banded California, I showed you the feed log and it was still eating live a couple days ago. And one way you can easily combat that, I never scented any of my pinkies. I just offered them frozen, and if they didn't take that, I offered them live. And especially with California king snakes, they rarely refuse a meal once they understand how it works. And they'll eat just about anything, so scenting doesn't really need to happen with them. Is offer them frozen, and if they don't take that, offer them live. And this is where breeding your own mice comes in really handy. Is I have any size available frozen all the time, and I can get live whatever size I want within a couple of days, depending on if I'm waiting on a litter or if a litter's growing up. It just takes a matter of time. And even if they're not big enough, I can offer two smaller ones, and that might even be better for him at that point. Instead of one slightly bigger, you give him two a little bit smaller, and he takes two of them, and it just helps them all together. So a lot of people out there are new keepers for sure, and maybe you're getting your first snake, your first baby snake, or even if you're getting anything, if you're getting something that's a baby, you have to be aware that babies are more likely to bite because they don't really know what's happening, more or less. They're not trained that a hand's going to come in and clean them and feed them and all that. They don't understand that yet. So especially baby snakes, they're more apt to bite you. But because they're babies, especially, I've had the corn snakes bite me a couple times, you feel that it struck at you and it hit your finger, but you don't know where it bit you because the teeth are so tiny, you just don't even feel it. I've had geckos bite me worse than that. I have bled many times from gecko bites, but never from a snake bite and never from a baby snake. And with them biting, baby snakes are a lot more squirmy and not calm, if that makes sense. Like an adult snake, it'll slither through your arms and it'll move around, especially if it's a colubrid. But baby snakes are always trying to get away and always looking for a crevice to get in, which when they're babies is a lot more often because they can fit into a lot more. So just be real careful when you're handling one. make sure you're confident to grab it if it's going to get away. Make sure you know if it tries to get away, I will be able to grab it, because if you hesitate, it'll get away. If you flinch for even half a second, it'll get away from you and you will be bummed and you'll be out however much you paid for it, and you'll never find it again, most likely. Alright, so here's a little update on these crested gecko eggs I put in the other day. They're looking alright. I wouldn't say there's nothing wrong with them. They're looking a little bit small, but otherwise they're pretty good. These ones just put away today, 6/27. Same dad. One of the moms, whatever one didn't lay this clutch, laid that clutch, because they can't lay that. There's 5 days apart. One of them laid one and one of them laid the other. And then with these eggs, you can see these ones are getting... I wasn't sure about these ones. I thought these ones would go bad. And even these ones got these weird little dimples on them. I thought for sure these would go bad. But this one's getting ready to go. I'm not sure on the date. That's why I changed it the way I'm doing it. But some of them are definitely getting ready to go. And inside the incubator, I have that one clutch of fat tail eggs. And I've got 5 leopard geckos. Of course, these aren't mine. These belong to my buddy Trent from Trent's Reptiles, but I'm taking care of him for him since he doesn't currently have an incubator. I'm James from James' Reptiles. If you like this, like it, subscribe, follow me on Instagram at James' Reptiles, Twitter, James' Reptiles, gmail.com, James' Reptiles, and James Welter on Facebook, and have a good day.